And we were criticized for the episodic release model, that it requires live connectivity, and we had on top of that launch server issues that we shouldn't have had. And that combination was something that we got criticized for a lot. I think also to a certain extent rightfully, but we had to make a tough decision. Do we want to avoid cheating? Or do we want to have an easy as possible single-player experience? And we chose to avoid cheating because our vision is a live service. Our vision is a platform for people to share and play with each other for years to come. Life is important for us, not cheating is important for us.
The modern Hitman games have had very strict online requirements since the release of Paris in March 2016. And while a limited offline mode was added in November 2016, most of those requirements still remain in Hitman 3. It's easy to attribute this to DRM, but I think the explanation is a bit more complicated and mostly boils down to some really bad decisions made over the years. To this day, internet connection is required to complete challenges, unlock new gear and starting locations, get post-mission ratings, and to play certain single-player game modes like Escalations and Sniper Assassin. If you're not familiar with how much that is in practice, imagine a Skyrim without any side quests or RPG elements, and you'll probably have something comparable. The opening clip I showed was Hannes Scheifert, the former IO Interactive studio head, talking at Game Developers Conference 2016 about the release of Hitman Season 1 and its online requirements. Forcing an online connection to prevent cheating in a single-player game is obviously a ridiculous idea to begin with, and in hindsight we can easily see that it didn't even come close to working. But I'm going to give Hannes the benefit of the doubt and assume that multiple factors played into the initial decision and that preventing cheating is just the one that stood out to him the most. Even if he was the studio head and presumably had a lot of say in the decision-making process, I don't think it's reasonable to expect him to personally know or understand every technical detail involved. A much more comprehensive and logical explanation was given by IO's lead online developer Christian Corsano on Hitman Forum in 2017 as a follow-up to his speech at the DevGam conference. The speech itself had a more technical focus, but the follow-up post elaborated more on what led to the online requirements. We designed the online systems to give us the possibility to build innovative features. Scoring is traditionally built offline, progression as well of course, and we did make that weird choice of moving them to an online profile. The reason we took that direction was never to implement an online DRM though. We moved scoring to the cloud to give us tools to prevent cheating from destroying leaderboards. I can't say we are very successful on that yet on PC, but at least we have a chance to improve the situation, which we did not have on Absolution. And we moved progression because we wanted player profiles to be meaningful, to be a building stone for our community. I started at IOI by working with Torben and the established online team on generalizing Absolution's contracts mode to make it far more flexible, making it a core system to the game. Game development is a creative process, and by building flexible systems and evolving them over time you are able to come up with ideas. Choosing to focus our time on building these online systems ultimately led to escalation mode, elusive targets, and all the rest of the content we can deliver without patching the game. When we started, none of that was in the plans, but through iterations it eventually came to life. Looking in retrospect, it would have been technically possible to build all of these in a more offline-friendly way, but I would argue if we did follow that more traditional approach, we might not have even thought of some of these, or dismissed them because of not having the required systems to implement them. Many features we thought of during development also did not materialize, which makes the online requirement look still a bit silly at this point. But as I stated in that video, we established a platform on which to build more Hitman, and I trust that at some point we will add enough value that our choices become more understandable. When it comes to offline mode, it is a question of time and priority. Supporting features offline is additional work, arguably because we did build these features to be online first and foremost. At the end of the day, when we have to choose between supporting building more features for offline mode, supporting the many releases, or building/evolving systems to back exciting new ideas, offline mode is not often on the top of the list. I don't know what wanting player profiles to be meaningful means, but for the most part everything Christian said was completely reasonable and understandable. However, one thing sticks out. When it comes to offline mode, it is a question of time and priority. This is a post from 2017, and since then nothing has been done to improve the offline mode. Has it really not been a priority at any point? This is only speculation, but I think initially people were outraged about the lack of offline mode on principle, and once the very limited support we now have was added, people were too accepting of the implementation and calmed down. After the demand for an offline mode fizzled, IO wasn't going to put any more resources towards improvements, and now we continue to be stuck with that sorry excuse of an offline mode. Another point to consider is that the online-centric systems have been in place for a very long time now. I can't claim to have any idea what's going on under the hood in Hitman, but I think anyone who's ever worked on software knows that trying to do major changes to an old code base can be much more difficult than you might think. Not to mention that in all likelihood, removing Hitman's online component is far more complicated than removing something like the de novo DRM. And as Christian said, it was never meant to be DRM in the first place, and I don't think they consider it as DRM these days either. Hitman Season 1 was released on GOG this September, and then taken down about 2 weeks later. GOG's biggest strength over other digital storefronts like Steam is that everything on there is supposed to be DRM free, so when Hitman released there was a fair bit of uproar about the online aspects. Again, I will give the parties involved the benefit of the doubt and assume that they genuinely considered Hitman to be adequately DRM free, as the online component didn't technically do any rights management. But for anyone actually playing the game, the technicality made little difference, and I think removing the game was the right call. At this point I'm sure some people are asking, but so what? I haven't had any problems with the online stuff. While people with internet issues should be enough of a reason to care, the real issue is that in the future, sooner or later, IO servers will go down, and with them, most of the game. Codename 47 was released 20 years ago, and I can still access everything it had back then. Hitman Season 1 was released only 5 years ago, yet I don't expect its servers to survive another 5. Hitman 3 servers might stay alive for a bit longer, but eventually IO will decide that maintaining them is no longer profitable, and that'll be the end of them. And that's assuming nothing unexpected happens much sooner. Hitman Absolution's Contracts mode servers were temporarily taken down in 2018 due to GDPR regulations, only 6 years after the game's release. I've seen a lot of people excuse this by saying that Square Enix owns the servers and this can't happen anymore because IO is now independent. But that's completely besides the point. An unexpected event occurred, and those will continue to occur, be it a legislative change or someone spilling coke on the server. The obvious solution would be for IO to clarify their long-term plans and commit to adding a full offline support in the foreseeable future. But this is how IO addressed their plans in an IOI Insider livestream earlier this year.
Offline mode, let's go again. Like I said, we're not dodging anything. Offline mode. I see a lot of people saying, what's going to happen when the server shut down? There's no plans to shut the servers down. I see people talking about it like it's an inevitability. That the last game of the Hitman 3 is out now, and that means that the servers are going down next week. No, absolutely no plans for that whatsoever. We know the players don't want servers to go down and stuff to be lost. We don't either. Nobody wants that.
That is not a plan, and the servers being shut down is an inevitability. Now, I don't expect IO to just add full offline functionality next month or anything unreasonable like that, but every month that goes by without them having any real long-term plan is a bad sign. While IO continues to ignore the issue, modders have gotten busy and server replacement mods have become a real thing. Some, like Peacock, are similar to the official server, which is great for the long-term future of the game, but in addition server replacements have a ton of potential to enhance the game, as Hitmap's Roulette has shown by adding a whole new game mode. I don't think it's the fans' job to fix a game that's still receiving official updates, but that seems to be where we are now. This is what IO had to say about server replacements in a recent livestream.
One thing I see about the server replacement stuff, that's a little bit more tricky. That's a little bit more of a red flag. Yeah, server manipulation and stuff like that is never something that we're going to support, officially or unofficially or anything. That's generally we would consider that a red flag.
I'm not a lawyer, so I won't speculate whether IO could take action against server replacement mods even if they wanted to. But as a fan, I think the real red flag in the room is IO's lack of a long-term plan, and server replacements are currently Hitman 3's best shot at longevity. And if we continue to believe that the online requirement isn't DRM, then why are server replacements such a red flag? For all the criticism I have for Hitman 3, I genuinely think that 20 years from now, it will be considered a classic the same way games like Deus Ex and Metal Gear Solid are considered today. But that's only if it remains playable for that long. Thanks for watching. If you made it this far, leave a comment or follow or something. I know I make like one video a year these days, but when I do, I think I'd like it to be more like this and less like a speedrun, so feedback is always appreciated. Cheers.